Um, we'd like to introduce today, we're lucky enough to have with us the famous Yaakov Mack, or Jacob Mack, and he's hailing out of Teaneck, New Jersey. I've spent a lot of time in Israel. We're going to get some background on him here, but we're here today to learn about some therapeutic techniques that he has to offer the world and help us deal with some of the challenges that some of us may be going through, or many of us, due to this corona virus epidemic that's worldwide, historic. And beyond that, I'm gathering from speaking to Jacob that it may help in all areas of life, but we'll get into that soon. Before we get going, let's just get an introduction or a little history about, what you do, where you're from, what got you into whatever it is you do,
Sure.
and why you're living in Teaneck. Did you grow up there? Were you in Israel? Were you in California? Whatever. Go ahead. Take it away,
Definitely
Jacob.
wasn't in California, not yet. Um, all right, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I'll just preface it with the fact that I sort of speak to mindfulness and being very present with ourselves. And my whole journey of where I've been from and where I've gotten to is really speaking to me just looking at myself the whole time and sort of realizing the steps. And it's been a long journey, and I'm only 21, and it keeps going. So it's pretty unique. And then I think we're gonna give you a little bit of a taste of that later on, with a little bit of like mindfulness practice, which I really recommend. So I was born actually in Passaic, New Jersey, which is not too far from here. Went to regular yeshiva day school, did the typical things, I guess, that a, pretty frum kid would do, the whole deal. I don't have much of a story until I'd say like the later portion of elementary school. I always felt a little like, you say different, like didn't really fit the mold. And like my first like sort of example of that is that, people generally started wearing white shirts after their bar mitzvahs. And I didn't want to go that route. Like I sort of wanted to, sort of be different than everyone else. Like, I had like this little bit of like a fighter in me. So I went with the polos.
Nice.
When I chose high schools, I think polos are nicer. I don't know. Not to knock the white shirt, but when I went to high school, most of the kids went a certain route, and I really went like I wanted to go a different trajectory, like the whole system oriented way that they were going. Like I didn't really fit that sort of mold. So I sort of chose, and I'm not going to get into the details of the school or whatever, but I sort of chose like a different path. I was there for 2 years. The first year was just, I think, also typical, like getting used to high school, getting used to yeshiva, learning more, longer days. I was also dorming, which was different. And just to get into that quickly, my family dynamic wasn't great. I was in a little bit of a tough situation at home. I sort of wanted that escape. Thank God, like today, I have a very good relationship with both my parents and my family, and I visit them often, and I love them, and I care for them. But at that time, it was a little difficult for me to accept them and, from where I was coming from and my differences. So I went to this dorming school. And in 10th grade, I sort of developed like this anxiety within me, and it would portray itself in different ways. And I went to see a therapist in the area that I was away in Queens. And he introduced me to this technique of mindfulness, which was my first exposure to any sort of meditation, mindfulness, any sort of thing. And it was actually a pretty simple practice. And it's something similar to what we're going to do later, is this technique of scanning my body and sort of recognizing where that that source of tension is, I'm sort of tensing up, and then pinpointing it and just getting your body into relaxation mode for that anxiety. And it actually really helped me at that point. I was kind of having a rough year, I would say. And I wanted to move on schools. I went to 3 high schools. So after 10th grade, I, kind of decided, that's it for me. I wanted to go even farther away. Queens wasn't far enough from New Jersey. So I went out to a school in Dallas, Texas, which was far away. I went maybe a 3-hour flight. I went home 3 times a year, maybe. And this was only 11th grade. It was enjoyable. It was cool. Like, it was my first, like, bulk of time, like, really away from home. So it was like a whole new perspective and how I see the world, how I relate to the world, a lot of changes in there. But at that point I was really like ready to, like, Judaism was like out the door. Like I didn't want to have anything to do with, like, I was just very confused. How do I relate to it? How do I, I come from this pretty religious place in Passaic, and I don't really connect to, their model, but, I've been to these 2 high schools and I don't really connect to their model. So I went to this, in the summer, I went to a camp called Camp Heller, which is no longer around. And my Rebbe's name, Rabbi Kalish, he runs a school up in Connecticut called Waterbury. Mm-hmm. And I connected with him on a very deep level in camp over 2 summers. And at a certain point, I realized, like, I think that's probably the best move for me to go to his school. So I went there for 12th grade. It was a very positive experience for me. For the first time in my life, I saw rabbis and rebbeim that cared about their students and only cared about their students without other, biases and other things that they were sort of involving themselves with. The whole year was just about, Rabbi Kalish is, he gives love and he gives respect and he gives all that in a very real way and in the way that I felt it. And it was something I very much needed at that time because, again, I was still very lost and I was still very, unsure of, like, what direction I was going. I was drinking a lot by that point, pretty often, actually. And I sort of, like, it was a good escape for me. It was only a year. I was already graduating, but it was a good escape. And now we get to the good stuff, to the Israel part.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of, I've been out there. So I also did a lot of Kiruv, and I came from a modern background. So I totally get where you're coming from, just listening. Totally get it.
So same here. I can relate.
I chose a school in Israel called Imre Bina, great school, great yeshiva. It's in Har Nof. This was going to be like my time to, like, discover. This was like, I'm away from America, away from my, like, not even like remotely near my family or anyone near I grew up with. Like, this is just away. This is my new discovery. I'd had a good experience the year before, like I had mentioned, but I was still, like, sort of, like, unsure of a lot of things. I think that's going to be a common theme in a lot of the things that I'm saying. But I really was pretty, like, uncertain of I was still uncertain sort of in my, like, religious Judaism aspects of how I felt and where I identified. And I spent a lot of time out in town, out in, like, not really in yeshiva. And my drinking was still, like, pretty heavily, like, it was like 3-4 times a week. And this is not just like a couple of chaims. This is like heavy
drinking.
This is like the 5 shekel shots in town, but still spending the
Polish
200
butterflies
shekel somehow.
The Polish butterflies.
Polish butterflies.
Yeah. So I um I was partying pretty heavily. Like, I had, I was going to Tel Aviv every once in a while, mainly Jerusalem, but like I just wasn't doing much in yeshiva. Like I would get on like these couple week spurts of like, trying to grow and trying to change myself, and then progressing farther and farther, I feel like. And I sort of noticed that, but like didn't really stop myself. Was sort of like, okay, this is my journey. And I think that goes into like the acceptance and that mindfulness. But I always knew where I was. I feel like I feel like I always knew, like, sort of like what I was, doing and how I was feeling and that kind of thing. So either way, in January of, this was 2017, my grandfather passed away. It wasn't really sudden. It wasn't really, I wouldn't say traumatic, but it really got me thinking. He was very close to me. He was very similar in some ways in being like a fighter in that way. Like he loved all these different kinds of interesting things, and he would, my earliest memories of him would do like these exercises on the floor at like 7:30 in the morning every day. And,
That's great.
Shalom Chaim ben Tzvi HaKohen. He was a very special man, and so he was kind of like a lot of the inspiration for a lot of this stuff. But so at that point, I had kind of done a lot of soul searching, and I was saying a lot of Tehillim, and Psalms, and I was going to Lakota a lot, and I was really trying to get at where I identified in this whole world and where I felt my place was. So I realized that drinking was becoming a real issue. It was happening very often and with not a lot of control. And I spent a couple months, kind of, researching and figuring out. Eventually, I joined a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, where they had meetings in Jerusalem, and that like really was a big life changer for me, because it was a program where I had to get honest with myself and with my, in that case, particularly with the drinking, and sort of doing.
But I think they have great programs. Like I wanted to use that in general. They have guidelines that are outstanding, in improving people, right? So you could use that in all parts of life.
Right.
So it's really, I had a Rebbe of mine who was just like, because I kept saying, let's make some sort of a group therapy for improving our midos, or ways to get close to Hashem. And he was like, you want to know how to make a group that's successful? Just read about Alcoholics Anonymous and follow their rules and their guidelines, and just implement, what is it called? Like replace the word alcohol with anger, or with, dvekas to Hashem, cool. Or, whatever. Anyway, yes, so go on.
One of the things actually I've sort of spoken about, and some of my friends in the program and out of the program, is sort of, we sort of like, just like went on like this mind trip of like, what was sort of like missing. Because I've done Mesilas Yesharim, I've done all these different kinds of Orchos Tzadikim, all these different kinds of, books on self-improvement in the Judaism world. The first two high schools I went to, like that was like their thing. Like Musar was their thing. It was sort of like, and I speak about this in meditation sometimes, the block from the heart to the mind. And there's sort of like a cutoff point there. And part of the thing in Alcoholics Anonymous is that we sit around the table and we're studying this book and we're speaking about it. We're going line by line and we're like dissecting it like it's a Gemara, like it's a Talmud. So it's very cool. And I recommend at least the model for it. And I've used it for other things as well in my life. But it was the first opportunity to really look at myself honestly, without cutting corners and without, pretending. And it worked for me. It really did. I've had slips and I've had times where I've relapsed, but overall, like the overpowering thing is that it got me sober. And that was sort of like the baseline for me to really start to understand myself. I had a pretty, and I went through a lot of like experiences, you know, like that religious thing, like the religious sort of identification. Like at that point, I sort of like started, you know, intensively learning Breslov Svarim, and I went to Uman, like, you know, for Rosh Hashanah, and I did all these different things. At a certain point, like, you know, I had, you know, looked at Chabad a lot. So I had done a lot of like sort of identification in that area, to the point where I am now, and we'll get to that. And I went to a different yeshiva next year in Israel. It was a lot of like growing, a lot of like learning, because again, I was like doing the first year over just sober. So it was like a whole different like realm. I just saw everything, literally, physically and mentally. I saw everything.
You were present. You were present.
So, yeah, exactly. So, I was present for all those challenges. That's another thing. Being sober was like I had to face my feelings and had to feel those feelings. And each time I've discovered a new challenge for myself, it's been that journey of what am I feeling? How am I doing? Am I being loving to myself? Am I giving to myself? And I started learning like different things that I like doing and different things that I find interests in, because I wasn't really like discovering my passions. I was more just doing things that felt good for me. All felt good on my body, so I drank alcohol. At a certain point, you know, I learned I love coffee. Like I'm obsessed with coffee. Like I love like music, you know, like I love going to concerts. You know, I love reading. Like I love mindfulness meditation. I started discovering and realizing things. And again, I'll preface it with saying that it's only because I'm sober. It's only because I have those gifts that have been given to me. And today that need to drink has been lifted from me, which is an amazing miracle. I had a pretty bad relapse at the end of the year of that second year in Israel. This was 2018, I think. I came back to America. I was looking into rehabs, you know, not really sure. Kind of felt like Israel kind of failed me, which it hadn't. And Israel's an amazing place, and so a lot of my friends are still there. But I had sort of felt like the yeshiva program and the system had kind of failed me in some sense. And I got back to America. I was 19, 20, and a lot of my friends were still there. You know, I wasn't really sure what I was doing with my life. I had done a little bit of like a college program, but I didn't have much. I definitely didn't have a degree. And I, you know, was searching. I was really searching because everything I knew was kind of different for me, because I came back and, you know, I didn't really have those relationships with like the high schools, because I didn't really keep up with these guys. And most of my friends from, you know, the later portions of high school in Israel were still in Israel, or they were doing other things. So I really had to like sort of just completely blow up this model and sort of just like rediscover life in America. And I went back up to Waterbury for a little bit, and you know, for like a month or so, and was like speaking to a lot of the rebbeim and really just trying to discover myself. And then I started working. I got a job locally in a school. I've been doing that ever since. And I was working with children.
Wow.
And it was a life-changing experience. And I say that because my whole life I was looking for something that would be profound and like crazy and mind-boggling and so different. And when I came to this work, and I would show up every day, and I had to be there 8:45, and I was there. And, you know, and then like miracles like started happening. Like I realized I needed my GED because I didn't have a diploma. So I somehow studied, and like all of a sudden I was sitting there taking my GED. I got into school, like I was doing college work, and all these different like things. I started involving myself with the local youth program. And, you know, at a certain point, I had, again, like sort of started straying again after I left Israel, and, you know, strengthening myself with doing work with the youth, and with, you know, showing up to work, and all these different things had sort of built me up and sort of helped me out. I started going, also, there's a local like sort of Jewish recovery program in New York. It's called the Living Room. It's a portion of Our Place, and I started going there. And it's also, they're really, really special people, and doing more identification within where I felt like I was connecting with people, and with this simple, like, you know, day-to-day life, I started realizing that life isn't so complicated, and I make life complicated for myself sometimes. And just doing simple actions, and just, you know, being simple, and just trying to live one day at a time in the moment, and just looking at the things that I can change for today really helps. You know, not going in with like this expectation of something, not going in with like needing to change the world, or needing to, you know, get everyone to like what I'm doing, but just going in, and like someone told me recently, like, just go in with like, you know, if you could help one other person, that is life changing, because you're changing that one person. And if that one person goes and changes another one or two people, and the cycle continues, you've changed the world just within that thing. And it's a big line in the program of alcohol, one day at a time, and accepting the things I can't change, and having the courage to do the things that I can. And that's a big thing for me, having the courage also to change the things I can, and leave everything else out of the picture, has really helped me. Getting to where we are today, meditation throughout this journey has been, and mindfulness throughout this journey has been super important to me. It's been, you know, along with prayers, I'd say that those two things are like, you know, probably like top 5. You know, there's, you know, having people close to you that you can talk to. There's, you know, therapy, but I'd say, and like the support groups, but I'd say that meditation has been like one of the top things, I'd say. And throughout this, you know, getting current to where we are right now, throughout this pandemic, I started realizing that a lot of people out there now, there's like this opportunity, there's like this void, you know, where everyone's at home, and everyone's sort of with their families and with themselves for so long, and they're realizing that a lot of like these things that I've sort of realized throughout my life are true for them as well. Like they have like this sort of emptiness, and they have this sort of like, you know, unfilled space that they're trying to go into. And there was like sort of like a need. And I started, you know, just very quietly with like a few people, like I'm doing like, you know, a little bit of like guided meditations, and I'm, you know, trying to reach out to people and just speak with them, and trying to spread this message of being very mindful and understanding. You know, I have like a bunch of journals here, and I just started journaling more. I hadn't done that for a while. I have, you know, I like writing, like I have all these like little sticky notes around my apartment now, and they're very helpful, just reminding myself. And this pandemic has also taught me a lot, even though I've learned a lot before, really getting into myself. And I sort of thrive with my back against the wall. Like that's where I work best, is when my back is backed up against the wall. So the reminders for myself to be accepting and loving and compassionate to myself, and letting myself make mistakes, are super important for me. And all I'm doing is realizing that other people can benefit from those things as well. So, you know, so that's sort of what I'm doing now, is sort of just going along this path. You know, I'm finishing up my degree in psychology right now, and I'm not 100% sure where that's going to take me, but it's going to look something along the lines of helping people getting mindful, and getting into themselves, and getting into their own journeys, because I've gotten into mine so heavily. And I moved out. Right now I'm in Teaneck, New Jersey, which is not too far from my parents, but it's a little bit of like a change in scenery. It's a little like, just like a fresh sort of background for me. I have a lot of friends in the community, and I'm just sort of right now with my religious life. I'm just sort of living the life that I sort of see out fit. It's sort of like I see Judaism in a certain way, and I didn't really see it when I came back to America. And someone told me, just live the life that you want to see in the world. Live the dream that you want to see in the world. Again, going back to the things like what you can change, you can only change what you have in front of you. So for me, that's just living life, and that's being mindful, and that's being, davening. And sometimes that's davening, a lot of times that's just davening here in my house, because that's what's, that's what's present, and I can focus and I can, zone in.
How did you learn? Like you're using the word. I've heard about it, but I want to learn more from you. You're using a lot. Often the word being mindful and mindfulness. Now I know that exists, and a lot of people use it. I've been exposed to it, and I've practiced it, somewhat, but I don't have a real footing in it. So.
Okay.
What do you mean? From listening to you, which it was very brave of you to share your life and your experiences, and how you grew past your challenges, and you're still developing that, and so on. What would you say? Number one, how do you use? What is mindfulness?
Sure.
The thing is, we may have to make a second session because you're offering a lot of good information, but if we run out of time, it's okay. We can have another session, which would be great. Okay. But let me just get to some important points based on things you revealed in your conversation here, is that what is mindfulness? Is it I'll give you 2 or 3 questions because you can embed it, bring it all together. Is it something that is accepted, people use, is something you made up? Because what I'm saying, how does this is it based on, I don't know if you use the word medicine, or is it just effective because you like it? That's like that. So what is it? Is it backed? Is it real? Has it helped? And finally, I'd say last, what can you use it for?
Okay, so I guess I'll go back to my first experience with it. On a very basic level, mindfulness is just a way to check in with ourselves. And I feel like in 21st century, everyone's running from something. And it looks like they're running to something, but that's really just a cover up for what they're running from. And unfortunately, most of the time that's running from themselves and their minds, their experiences and their traumas. And mindfulness it could be an intense experience, but essentially it's just checking in with ourselves. It's getting present with, the moment. So in a very simple example, it's just, I have a cup of coffee in front of me, and I could drink it and understand that I'm drinking coffee, instead of drinking coffee and doing 1,000 other things and I don't even realize that I'm drinking coffee. So what it looks like in a practice for me is, meditating a few times a day. And that's a pretty rigorous practice. I wouldn't start out with that. But what I do is I bring this, and I brought this to NCSY within Shabbatonim, which I've done. And, just checking in with our bodies and checking in with how we feel. And we're going to run through a little bit of a meditation soon, which I think you'll understand what it really is about, because I don't think that people really understand something until they connect it from their minds to their hearts, like I'm saying. So
are you able to explain why? Oh, go on. Yeah.
Yeah. The way it's definitely backed scientifically.
Okay.
If you want, I can link in articles and all that kind of stuff. Psychology has taken a certain path, interestingly enough. There's so many different kinds of psychology and so many different theories, and there's Freudian theory, there's there's theories of development, there's all these different kinds of theories, which I won't bore you with. But recently there's been a movement called the holistic method, which is a more like wholesome, like perspective and understanding where all these different kinds of therapies sort of are good, and there's sort of like a combination. There's also something which is very popular is CBT therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is all about mindfulness. You know, there's sort of like two worlds. There's like the trauma sort of like, you know, healing world. And then a lot of times either before or after people go into the CBT therapy, which is really just getting mindful and you're, you know, just speaking about like, you know, what's going on in your life and, you know, speaking through sort of like, you know, different challenges that someone has and, you know, sort of getting through that. So that's like the CBT world. And that's really like just another way really to call, you know, being mindful. And with meditation, and it's kind of synonymous, but it's not, because you don't need to be meditating to be mindful. You could, and a lot of the things that I do is sort of to bring the meditation into your life and to be mindful throughout your life. But people are, again, like I was saying, are running. They're in this fight or flight mode, which means that our bodies are constantly like, you know, looking for something to jump at. So when we were living out, you know, without technology and without locks on our doors and very primitive, you know, sort of environments, so you needed to run away from the bear that was, you know, sort of attacking you. But nowadays we're not constantly around that. You know, nobody's walking into my room right now. Why am I in fight or flight mode? Why am I in this sympathetic? It's called the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So why am I in this, you know, this fighting mode? Why can't I just be at rest? Why does it always need to be this, you know, sort of
run for your life or attack?
Yeah. Right.
Fight or flight.
So meditation and mindfulness, when I start to practice it, and it's not complicated, and I'll show you, it's not complicated, but just to dial it down and just to realize that I only need those things when I'm really in a tough situation. But for a vast majority of our experiences in life, the best thing for us is to be calm. The best thing for us is just to go into that meeting clear-headed and calm and focused and passionate. And so that's essentially what mindfulness is. It's just this leveling out the playing field. It's not like this jumping up and down. And it can go into like I've used it in so many different experiences for myself, you know, so many different other like, you know, addictions or whatever that I've, you know, sort of faced along the journey, like getting mindfulness with like what I'm eating and like, you know, that the exercise and those kinds of things and my relationships and all, you know, everything. It's pretty all encompassing. And the way I use it is just to be able to dial myself down and realize like, you know, calm myself down. It's okay. Like a lot of times I struggle with like accepting myself. Like I've mentioned with like this journey of like religion, like it's okay where I'm at. I can accept where I'm at today and work with what I have and understanding where I'm at today.
Can I ask you one question on that? And maybe we could have another session where we go through 3 or 4 examples of meditation or something.
Okay.
But I want to, this is a key question to me and maybe hopefully to the viewers as well. If somebody, I'm looking at myself, I'm a little bit ahead of you. I'm 45 years old. I am now working at home. I've got, thank God, Kanai 8 children. One of them is out of the house, but coming all the time to eat here and with their husband. And the intensity of the situation has changed. Yeah. And top of that, the world is upside down. You're learning, looking, seeking as an entrepreneur for all different new possibilities to earn a parnasa for your family. When you combine massive life changes, and this could be anything, I'm just naming the situation right now. So we'll call that anxiousness, anxiety, stress, sometimes just losing your mind. How would you explain, can you explain why mindfulness would make someone stop feeling pain inside of themselves and be able to deal with the situation perhaps more effectively, right? They'll come in, like you're saying, somehow it calms you down, and now you can come into the meeting without the stuff and the noise and deal with the meeting or something, right? So here you've got so much in your mind, you're struggling to stay calm, you're feeling not a good feeling inside throughout the day because you feel like if I could just escape, or if they, you know, I love my whole family, but I just can't balance the whole thing, the big life change, right? I'm hearing this from my friends and I'm feeling it myself at certain moments of the day. How can you explain that a form of meditation or being mindful? I'm very mindful. They're running all around with a jump rope, you know. I'm mindful of it. I see the jump rope. I mean, I'm teasing. Obviously, it means something else. But with that joke, how would you explain it could
I
help?
love that you said, how can I stop these feelings? And that's it, is that
That's right there.
mindfulness is what mindfulness is that it's this realization and acceptance that I can't stop it. It's sort of like a surrender in some ways to the realization that I don't have control over these things. And I think one of the biggest experiences that people have had in the past few weeks is that realization that this control that I thought I had before the virus is really an illusion. There is no control. Things could turn over like that. I don't have, you know, millions of people don't have jobs. They're not sure how they're going to pay their rent. They're not sure, you know, all these different things. And mindfulness is not a way to solve life's problems. And sorry to break it to anyone, we have to go through those emotions. What I am saying is that we can realize that running doesn't work, and eventually the pain and the struggles catch up to us. It caught up to me. And that's when I realized, you know, going into the mindfulness and going into the meditation really helps. And it's not a way to fix it. It's a way to start listening, and it's a way to start identifying and realizing that I don't need to run. And in fact, when we start doing those things, we realize it's a whole lot less scary to sort of jump into that wall that we see there, that wave of who I am, than to run. Because running, it takes a lot of energy. And it looks scary. There's a lot of there's like this wall in front of us where it's like, oh my God, if I go into myself, like I'm done for it. Like I can't go there. But once I take that first step into that journey of being mindful and starting to understand that all those different fears and anxieties and emotions, all they want from me is for me to accept them and understand that they're there. And I've explained it in this way, which Yeshua has been a part of, to see in the meditations, is just to be like a father for those things, and just to be like, I'm sort of like calling up like a kind of higher self in some ways, and sort of just taking those things and giving it a hug and just accepting them, and realizing that through that acceptance, I can finally start to let go of those blocks and let go of those walls. So before I walk into that meeting, I kind of let go of that expectation of anything happening. I kind of let go of control over I need that and that to happen. And it's more just whatever happens is going to happen. I can only bring myself. I can accept the things I can't change, and I can have the courage to change the things that I can. I can go into this meeting and realize that, you know, that I have my set of skills, and I'm going to try my hardest in that set of skills, and everything else is kind of out of my control. So before mindfulness, it's more just like I'm just scampering anywhere to get something. After mindfulness, it's checking in with myself and realizing that the only way to really understand and get into myself and really be successful in any way is to understand that all these things are the things that build me and the things that make me. So when I can go into myself and start listening to those things, and again, it sounds scarier than it is. Maybe we'll close with a 30-second practice.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It is a way to really check in, and I hope that I explained it well for you.
No, you did explain it. I think you explained it excellent, because I've heard certain explanations in the past that were decent, but that was very good. I'm just pushing one button, and it could be you have to experience it to know it, but just as a sort of icing on the cake or the finishing remark, which you may have done and I didn't catch, but I just want to put it for myself because I'm actually very interested, since I could use the help, is if you do become mindful and you do accept those experiences, right? So now I'm just using Svara to extrapolate from there and tell me if I'm right or wrong, capped with a question, is if if I'm running around and I don't have a grip with, and I'm fighting the feelings, or I am fleeing for the feelings by trying to hide and escape them. So logically, I can say that's very painful, because in a sense, I'm trying to solve it. I'm either solving it by trying to face it up, and whether it's taking a child and saying, I told you, just don't do that again, and like that's not going to help, because he's a child, she's a child, that's what they do, you know what I'm saying? And like, or if it's I'm going to escape, I don't know, I need a job, and I since I'm so scared of speaking to the boss or starting a business, I'm going to hide under the table. It's like so you're going to be in a lot of pain under the table,
the fight or flight mode.
Because that's the fight, right? So if I accept it, I can see how those pains leave. But where I always get stuck in, after hearing others explain it, like yourself or similar to yourself, is, but will I feel, how much better can I feel if in the end I don't have the money, or I am exhausted and they're crawling on my head, even though they're cute, and I just want to relax. So, and I can't get that. I can't force it. I can't run from it. I can't, like, no flight or fight. So you've experienced the meditation. Some things a person can't put into words. I get it. You've got to experience it. But would you say that the answer is you didn't solve those problems? It's true, you did not make them, the children leave the house. They're beautiful. They're in your house, and that's where they are right now, and you should love them, right? But if you're able to do this mindfulness, and the result is you can appreciate the thing better. I'm trying to understand, like, what will there be some relief of pain?
Right. I think that, like I'm saying, one really needs to experience it to understand it. And for me, it's helped with that. For me, again, like I'm saying, I don't come to mindfulness and meditation with, a certain expectation of what it's going to bring me. One of the things that you were talking about this, once I get to this place, and for myself, and this is my own experience, and what I'm saying.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Mindfulness is a practice. Mindfulness is, there's no place to get to, and once I got there, sort of solved. Just like
you're mindful.
In the rooms of AA, where once I got sober, so now I'm good, I keep going to the meetings and I keep doing the work, because in the Dover soap, there's no end. And in a certain way, that's like, could be stressful, but it also could be this amazingness of this constant discovery and this constant seeking in a good way, where it's like, wow, I'm really starting to learn more and more and more, and there's always more to uncover in a very positive and good way if I can have a good experience with that. So the same thing with mindfulness is, and with this 30-second thing I'll end with, is that I think that the more I do it and the more I get into it, the more I'll come to this acceptance, and the more I'll realize that I don't need to change these things, and all these things around me are okay, and they're able to all coexist. So
that's a good answer. That's a quality
answer to me.
So for people
that are first time, sort of getting into this practice and are a little bit nervous about it, what I'd say is challenge yourself for the first couple times and come to this place of acceptance of, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to be open to the idea that there's something called mindfulness and there's something called meditation, which might help me. It might help me, it might not. I think mindfulness and meditation is for everyone. I think it's sort of like there's a lot of like sort of, aura around, mindfulness, meditation. It's like this big thing, but it's really not. And I'll end with this 30-second, sort of like taste of what it is. And maybe we can come back and do a more intense meditation. But again, just to be open to the idea of it, and to try to experience it, and to be open that maybe this thing can help me. So simply what it is, and you can do this with your eyes open, with your eyes closed. I'm going to do it with my eyes closed because I like to do that. It's just, and you can do this anywhere. You could do this, on a subway. You can do this on a train. You could do this standing in the grocery store. You can do this at home. Is just stopping for 20 seconds. And I'm just going to demonstrate. just taking a deep breath in through your nose and just feeling how it feels, feeling that feeling of going into the nose and holding it in your chest, and then letting it go. And you can do it again. Just breathing in through the nose, holding it in your chest and letting it go. And you can do that standing anywhere. And just for one moment, just try to let go of all the different worries just for that 10 seconds and say, I'm going to deal with that in 10 seconds. Just for right now, I'm checking in with myself. And already just from that 2 seconds of breathing, I feel calmer. And I've been doing it for a little bit.
Are you thinking of something when you're breathing? What are you, you're not thinking of anything else. So are you picturing air go into you?
So
like,
we can get into like more of like, you know, the meditation,
right.
But
okay.
It's just a breath. It's like I mentioned, when I got back from Israel, it wasn't this crazy thing. It was the simple job. It was the simple little things. So for me, it's just a simple breath, and it's a realization that I have, like, you know, calm. And I mentioned yesterday with Yeshua that it helped me like fall asleep one night. Like I was having trouble falling asleep. So I just focused on like that breath, like going in and out. And we breathe all the time. We're human beings and we breathe all the time. How often are we looking at this breathing that we're doing 24/7? How often, we look at our jobs a lot more that we're not doing 24/7 than we are at this breathing. So I think that's why it's super important. And I hope we can get into it a little more, maybe grasp, but I think to leave off with that note of just breathing and just checking in, because the breathing really is just, you can go further than that and realize that, in this present moment, I also have all these thoughts and all these feelings, and I start to check in with them. And I realize like, I could sort of like use the breathing to let go of them. And that's really where a lot of the magic is. But again, it just starts with this breath, with this one breath in and this one breath out, where I can come to this moment and realize like, just for right now, I can let go, and just for right now, it will be okay. And maybe I don't see a solution, but I can trust that that solution is there somewhere.
Wow, great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jacob, that was excellent. I'm summing up as with me today was Jacob, Yeshua Cutler, myself, Melech Wask. What I got out of this today is, listen, Jacob, to me, you shared not such an unusual story, because fortunately, I think it's fortunate to find out human beings are all going through trial and error. Some people live on a merry-go-round, and some people live on a roller coaster. But I can say, without revealing my story, that I've been in many wild places, and I get it. And so besides being brave, we learned a lot that with your challenges, you came across a method that is, we'll learn more about, but is somewhat, I guess, universally accepted at this point. And it's the holistic approach in the psychology world, which takes into consideration many different therapies or something like that. And it comes to this place where you learn to be mindful of what's happening to you and around you. And with that exercise, it's not a matter of ending up in a place, and it's somehow, we'll see through experience and exercise, that it ended up being a life-changing experience for you. And I'm gathering many people you shared this with. And since it's a life-changing experience for so many people, it is definitely worth all of us giving it a shot, right? So if we try it, we're open-minded, and we then become mindfulness, it very well may be something that can change our lives, to appreciate what's around us, what we have, the children we have at home, the husband or wife, or the mother or father, whatever it is, and not even changing anything. It's going to be some sort of a practice we're all going to learn that helps us appreciate the situation and live with it more happily. Is that right?
Right. And I think we'll come to more of understanding as we do it, just like anything else. It's a practice. It's not a,
Fun.
Right.
Like, it's not like 1
therapy.
+ 1 is 2. Like, I'm stuck in that world where I'm like, how do you just get there? You're like,
Exactly.
There is no there. It's not
We got
there.
that. Just
That's the
close
first
it out
step.
there. Got it.
Shut it off.
You're not getting there. You're just being. You're just being. I mean, I don't know what we'll see.
There we go.
We're gonna be
I
mindful.
think you have it. I think you have it.
So Jacob,
Okay,
I know
so
you got to start work. Just a last question. I found you on a WhatsApp group, and I forgot which one exactly. And you mentioned that you're doing this once or twice a week. One of them came out during a time where, I'm in Israel, so it worked out. Is there somewhere where people can find out when you're doing this? Because I know this is like a free service that you offer. You just like trying to help people out.
It's
Amazing.
purely just to
I've
help.
experienced it twice already, and it was, if I continue even doing it myself, I think I would gain a lot. But yeah, how do people find you?
Sure. So the easiest way is on my socials. I'm on Jacob Mack. Just look it up. If you haven't, just Jacob Mack Mindfulness. But if anyone wants to text me or WhatsApp me and join in, I do them on Zoom. I do them on Instagram. My number is 201-250-0846. It's in America. Feel free to WhatsApp me. I'm more than happy to share. I have recordings of meditations. I have, when I'm available, I can sort of share more about this sort of like experience. And I can provide you guys with the links to these meditations. So right now I'm doing them within this Corona world. I'm doing them Mondays and Thursdays. So they're America time, they're Monday mornings and Thursday evenings. And they're all getting recorded and they're all being posted. So there's definitely methods. And I also want to say that I'm not the only one. There are so many resources on YouTube and on the web and so many people that might even do it better than I do, probably do it better than I do. So, if you can't connect with me, please, this is a open world and please just find it wherever you can, because that's what I did.
Amazing.
That's great. Wow. No, but
I feel bad for you, Mel, because you didn't get to taste the.
I know. I've got to stop my.
You got to.
I gotta chase. Stop all the chasing. I've got two businesses on the side that I'm supposed to earn money with somehow, and just running like a chicken without a head. It's like the entrepreneurial phobia. I don't know what you call it. Like you just. Like a gambler, you just get stuck in like a new business. I got another idea. Let's open up another business, and yeah, this is fun. Let's start another one. Anyway, so but yeah,
I look forward to hearing your experience with it as we go into it,
as we progress. Okay, so we're gonna offline. We'll set up another time, but we're gonna post this eventually and show you how you can reach Jacob and how you can go meet up with him, and whether it's a WhatsApp or experience, get on listen to his meditations, and very resourceful. It'll be helpful for a lot of people.
Sure.
So round 2 will be hands-on exercise by Jacob Mack.
All right. Have a great day.
It was great. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Jacob.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye.